So that's our discussion today, going to graduate school. And here's our group. Lots of great people, and I will introduce them quickly and then we're gonna let them talk. First, we have Dan Cohen. Dan is the manager of North American sales at Vistaprint, a Providence-based startup line of business products. He is an expert at sales and management, and we know it isn't always easy to manage sales and sales personnel. So that's why I love his LinkedIn quote. For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. And maybe Dan can illuminate us more, but I think that shows it's important to be able to work well, both independently and as part of a team. Dan is the only one of our panel. He's unique. He's not a thorough roadie through and through. He did go to another college and another graduate school, but he recognized the missing piece and came to URI to get his MBA. And so we're delighted he is here today. Next, we have Nancy Ferrara. Nancy is the VP of Sales, the Vice President for Sales and Service Strategy at Citizens Financial Group, also based in Rhode Island. Nancy has a BS in math from URI and has had a spectacular career in banking with increasingly expanding positions of responsibility, including leadership and execution of strategic and tactical sales products, designed bank products, managed customer service lending, the gamut. And we know Nancy is much in demand. She ran from one panel to another this morning. And so we appreciate your dedication to URI. Thank you, Nancy. And this is all alphabetical. Let me just say this introduction, it has nothing to do with how much we admire anybody, although we do admire. And this is also from Nancy's, is a recommendation she received. Nancy's big picture vision and attention to detail, regardless of size and scope of the project, is remarkable. So I thought that was a great quote. Next, we have Lucy Moyes. She is a senior consultant for supply chain innovation at CVS, our state's largest company. Lucy is our panel's most recent graduate. During her graduate work, she was a graduate assistant and she interned at CVS, where she currently works. As a bachelor in supply chain management, she did multiple internships, studied abroad in Taiwan, and obtained several relevant certifications, all the while being the captain of the varsity crew team at URI, which is very impressive. For all of you interested in creating your LinkedIn profile, I highly recommend you go to Lucy's profile, and I know that Lisa Lancelot is going to put some of these in the links in the chat to everybody's LinkedIn profile, because I think it gives you some great examples of how to structure yours. Welcome, Lucy. And we've saved one of our own, the great Bob Tamburo is joining us today. He is the principal at Diamond Hill Consulting in Providence. And Bob is also a longtime instructor at the College of Business. Bob, in his current role, provides advisory services to companies and individuals, including strategic planning, sourcing, transition, governance, executive coaching, the gamut. Prior to his current position, he was director of 2 supplier departments at Raytheon, and prior to that, director of marketing and operations at a health plan. Since 2012, we have been very lucky to call him our own at URI, and he teaches a course that I highly recommend that you take on career planning for business and accounting majors. So welcome, everyone. Thank you, panelists, for coming today. And I'm going to ask the first question, which is for all of the panelists, and that is, why did you decide to go to graduate school for your MBA when you did? Please take it away, panel. Whoever wants to jump in, please unmute yourself and go.
Well, I'd be happy to go first, Kara, if you can hear me. Excellent.
Yep, a little louder.
Okay. So why did I decide to go to graduate school? I am a lifelong learner. I loved school. You know, when you get to be parents, you'll know that you like the kids that like to go to school, and My parents were farmers, so I knew right off the bat I did not want to do that. I wanted to go and learn something different. As I said, I was a math major in school, and decided, well, to go along with the math major, I really wanted to, I minored in business and wanted to pursue increasing that that business knowledge, that general business knowledge. So I went back to school as an MBA part-time after I got a job and had my employer help me get through financially for grad school. So it was really to expand my career and expand my my knowledge, my skills, everything.
And you had an employer help you with it. Yeah.
Correct.
You know, this is Bob. I'll go next. You know, two things for me was one, to remain current. You know, I think after you leave school, you know, I started out in public accounting, and what I learned, I applied and enjoyed it, but I wanted to stay current. And as I was going into my job, I found that the part-time MBA did exactly that for me. Not only in the industry, but also current as far as being able to understand strategy of a company. And then I'd say the second thing is to remain competitive. And I think as you go through your career and you look at the leadership level positions, you know, years back, it might have been, you know, preferred. It's definitely required if you want to hit those higher level leadership positions. So those two items for me were a big driver.
I can go next. I decided, so I graduated undergrad in 2018 and I went right into my MBA the following fall, and I graduated from the MBA program this past spring in 2020. And the reason I decided at the time, I was applying for jobs. I wasn't exactly planning to go to grad school, and I got some job offers. But what I also got was an opportunity to be a graduate assistant at URI. So I ran the URI 101 program and mentoring program. And that was through the dean, the assistant dean of the College of Business. So the job offers I got were like nothing that was crazy that I was like, I'll never get something like this again. But getting to go to grad school completely free, which is what a grad assistantship does for you, and working part-time and getting management experience was all involved in the role that I was going to be doing. So it seemed perfect. I knew an MBA was something that I wanted to do in my future at some point, and because I knew I wanted to be in business, and an MBA was eventually going to be the right move. But because the timing worked out that I could do it for free right after school, that's mainly the reason I chose to.
Great.
Hi, everybody. So as Kara pointed out, I think my journey is a little different than the rest of the panel. The MBA was actually my second master's. My first master's was in education. Pursued that because at the time I was professionally very invested in experiential learning, camping, youth groups, things like that, things outside the classroom. And it seemed to make a lot of sense to get into education. Push come to shove, it didn't exactly work out. Found myself in sales. Was in sales for about 4 or 5 years when I was starting to really question whether or not this was a career for me. For me, the MBA, the original catalyst for the MBA was actually trying to get out of sales. And then through the course of the program, I realized that sales was actually the perfect career path for me. And it turned out that the MBA program actually made my job a lot easier. It made it easier to work with customers, it made it easier to navigate internally. I think most importantly, it actually helped me really build a network, which is something I did want going into it, but really turned into a really worthwhile investment of my time.
Thank you. And the question of when you did, so Lucy answered that question, which was she decided to go straight through because of the opportunity, and there was some of it. That is a calculus, and then there is at many schools, including URI, we have both full-time and part-time programs that you can choose from, so that makes it easier. Is that correct, panelists?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, part-time was perfect. I was in a new position and was dedicated to that job, loved what I was doing, and didn't have an issue, going to class at 6 or 7 at night. It worked out perfectly for me at the time. Drank a lot more coffee. It worked out great. And again, keeping me current, I did it over, I think it was 3 years. Lisa could probably keep me honest on that, but I think it was at least over 3 years that I did it. And I didn't mind stretching it over that time, because every time you went to class, you went into work the next day or the next week and you applied it. So part-time was excellent.
Great. And we have one more question for the panel, and then we'll open it up if there's some questions in the chat. The next question is, what are the benefits of the MBA? Do I really need it? Lucy and some of you were, and some of you now are business majors. So, if you're a business major, do I need a graduate degree in the same subject? How does it benefit me to get that degree?
I'll jump in to start, I guess. I realized I left out my when, so I apologize to everybody on the call. I finished my MBA in the summer of 19. I also did it part-time. My master's degree I finished in 2013. So kind of some gaps in my timeline there. But for the benefits, kind of what I was saying before, for me, what's worked really well is being able to find common ground and common language for internal communication, as well as communication with customers. For those of you that have taken Dunn's legal class, which I know there's an undergraduate version, because he likes to talk about it in the graduate version, I use that class all the time. I'm not joking. I actually have the book sitting on my desk right next to me. I used it in a conversation with a customer yesterday when they were complaining about our shipping policies, and I got to reference the UCC. And being able to understand a very broad sense of that language and terminology solves a lot of problems really quickly. All of a sudden it went from, Dan is some sales manager to, oh, Dan actually understands legal aspects of business. Really changes the conversation with the customer. And then internally, it changes conversations as well, to sit with marketing and talk about perceived value versus total value. It changes how they look at you as a professional, again, as somebody here's someone who knows nothing about what I do versus here's someone who has a peripheral understanding of what I do and can really just accelerate those relationships and those communications.
So I'll jump in next if that's okay. The benefits I see of the MBA degree is what you make of it. I know for myself, I wanted it for added visibility, added skill set, but it sets you apart from other people that don't have a master's degree. And when someone is looking at your resume or looking at you for a promotion or added responsibilities, that has come into play a couple of times for me where they've mentioned, oh, so and you have your master's from URI as well, and kind of got into a conversation with that. So I would strongly recommend it for just future growth opportunities.
Yeah, I think two of the classes that stick out for me that was beneficial was strategic management and finance. And, to Nancy's point, you're sitting at a table discussing a multi-million-dollar investment, and your peers at any age that haven't had that visibility or experience will start talking about how beneficial this investment is because that's what they read, versus talking strictly about, understanding the financial metrics of net present value and things that sometimes might put you to sleep when you listen to it in class, but it's the real deal on how you make those decisions. So strategic management and finance were huge for me as a benefit. And a quick go back on when, I don't think I addressed that. I would say, as opposed to a date, do it when you're ready. Do it when you've got good life balance, you understand what you want, you're committed to it, you love what you're doing, and you're mentally ready to go back. I had a false start. I did a class, 2 classes. I wasn't ready yet. I just graduated. I was in a different job. I played in a band at night and I having a great time, but I didn't have the discipline to buckle down. So really contemplate, a little self-reflective. And I say, when you're ready to commit to it and understand the time constraints and the work, and if you love what you're doing, it won't feel like work. So I just give you that piece of advice. Thanks.
I also did a part-time MBA, so I did it at night. It took me about 2 years. I took 2 to 3 classes a semester, and I did 1 J-term class. But I would say the networking was the most beneficial part to me. The people you meet from all different areas, that not only business backgrounds, but engineering, political science, people are there to make career changes and also just to further their own careers. So the backgrounds that you get to learn from in your classmates are very diverse. And then it also really challenges you. It takes a lot of time management to work either part-time or full-time during the day. I was working part-time in my first year of the MBA, but then full-time in my second year because I took on an internship, or a co-op rather. And to do that 9 to 5 and then drive to Providence and take class 6 to 8:45, it really challenges you and it pushes you. So when you do get to the real world and you're only working, you don't have homework to do at the end of the day, and it feels like such a relief. So it gets you ready.
That's great. So the applied learning part of it, and Nancy, you touched on this, and I think Bob, you have too, which is that in terms of promotion, either internally or externally, it's a factor that the MBA is a factor that people will consider with 2 candidates. Is that what you're also saying? That it can accelerate your career a lot more quickly?
I think so. My role that I accepted after I finished my MBA is a higher level than a role that I would have accepted after just an undergrad education. And also, when you meet managers and directors and VPs within, my point of reference is CVS, they mostly all have MBAs. So it is something that the higher you get, the more you see within a company.
Yeah, I think it's important too to go back, depending on what your atmosphere is and your experiences at work. And even if you're comfortable and you're happy at the level you're at, not everybody wants to continually climb a corporate ladder. You could be an engineer, you could be an accountant, you could be sales and marketing, supply chain, but to speak the language of that business, I think it's always beneficial to go back, continuous learning, and there's nothing more courageous than to say, I don't want the promotion. I know that sounds odd to hear that at this level in your career, but sometimes it's not in your career plan. It's not in your life plan. But it doesn't mean that you want to stop learning. And if you're at the conference table, virtually or physically, the MBA, and I think that Daniel said earlier, gives you that common language. So we've talked about advancement in your career, but also think about just your lateral moves in your career and just understanding that common language.
To be a good worker, to be a good employee, to be a good citizen of your company or your employer. Lisa Lancelota, do we have questions in the chat?
Not yet. Does anybody
Okay.
have any questions that they want to enter into the chat? If not, we have plenty of questions to ask.
We have plenty of questions. We do. So here is the big question for lots of the juniors and seniors, and maybe even the people who are a little more in the early stage of their undergraduate career. What are some tips for applying for an MBA degree? If you want to talk about standardized tests, essays, recommendation letters, strategies, even, we have some early career people, so even classes you might recommend as an undergraduate. So the floor is yours. Let's say, what if I were to be applying for an MBA program, what do you think that you would tell me?
So I'm really interested in hearing some of the people that got into it more recently for the MBA degree. For me, I think the recommendations were really beneficial for me. I had been out in the working environment, so that helped me to tap into not only professors that I had talked to, but also employers that I had talked to. So I had a good number of recommendations. And the essays I was able to pull from real world experiences. So I really liked that component of it. As far as the standardized testing, I don't even know if they're doing something different now. I know that they're doing some different things because of standardized testing just to get into school. So I know that I had a big book. It wasn't even online. It was a big book, just like the SATs, and you went through and you studied and locked yourself in a room and kind of went at it that way. But I'm sure that it's gotten a little bit different now.
Yeah, I mean, my tips. So I started, when did I start? In 2016, I think. Take care of school, guys, and especially like kudos. What do we have, Lisa? 19% of the group is freshmen. Is that right? Kudos to you guys to start, beginning with the end in mind. That is awesome. Take care of school. Take care of your grades. Get some relationships with your professors. Get those letters of recommendation. They're huge. They're so huge. I actually, if you want to do what I did, go get another master's first, because then you don't have to take any exams to get in. URI has a policy, if you already have a master's degree, you don't have to take any exams. So you can always do that. But otherwise, take care of your grades. You know, get those A's, get those A minuses, and you're going to do great. To put it in perspective, when I applied, I had some letters of rec. I'd already been working for a while, so I had some letters of rec from bosses and from peers, etc. Wrote my essay. Right after I submitted my application, I looked back and I saw I had just a terrible typo right in the first sentence on the first page of my entrance essay. I was just like, I'm not getting into grad school. And then I got in. Take care of your grades, take care of school, take care of business, as they say, and you guys are going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, I just saw a question from Spencer. Spencer happens to be in my section, so good to see you, Spencer. And it just touches on this question, and that is preparing for the test. Don't wait till the last minute. It's not like you're studying for the bar or CPA exam, but it's something that, just look at your schedule. And, I think Lucy mentioned time management earlier. Look at your schedule, look at when you're taking the exam, and just back it off, more than several weeks. Chunk it up into sections so it's not overwhelming and you're having a panic attack, the night before, and you'll be fine. So time management, I think, in preparation is huge. And then strategies on, cover your ears, Lisa, but strategies on locations, right? Honestly, I'm URI, I'm Rhode Island, born and bred, but I did look around because I'd like to understand what differentiated one school from another. And so one strategy for me was to understand, what differentiates the programs. So I would encourage you to do that. You'll come back to URI and go here anyways, but go out there and check them.
Yeah,
And like,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lucy.
oh, I was gonna, like Dan said, take care of school, because if you have a 3.5 from URI, you don't have to take the GMAT or GRE. But you do still have to apply, get those letters of recommendation, and write a personal statement, which is an essay on why you're the right fit for the grad program that you want to go to.
Absolutely. Yeah, and as Lucy mentioned, so I'm the MBA coordinator. So if you're interested in the MBA, you'd be contacting me. As part of the URI College of Business requirements, as Lucy mentioned, if you have a 3.5 GPA from URI, actually any major, you are waived from having to take the GMAT or GRE. Now, that's only at URI. Some other schools do follow similar policies. So as you're doing research on graduate programs at other universities, look to see what their requirements are. Some will still waive the GMAT, some won't, some don't take the GRE, we take the GRE. So everyone's completely different. So just make sure that you're doing your research, create a spreadsheet for yourself as far as what the requirements are. The other thing I want to mention was that some programs do have a requirement that you have 2 years full-time work experience before you can even apply. Okay, so we don't have that requirement, although the average age of our evening student is 29 to 30, and the average age of our full-time one-year program is 24 to 25. Just double check what the requirements are for each school and that you're meeting those requirements as you go along. Just one piece about the GMAT and GRE. Traditionally, they were done at testing sites. right now, because of COVID, you can take them at home on your computer. If you're interested in the GMAT, you go to mba.com. The GRE is gre.org. And you set up times. You just need to make sure you're meeting their requirements, because you will need a camera. Obviously, you have one today, but you will need a camera because someone's going to be watching you. So just keep that in mind as you're kind of preparing for that exam. And also, GMAT, GRE scores are good for 5 years. So even if you're not 100% sure you're going to go into graduate school after undergrad, you could take them now, maybe during the summer between your junior senior year, and now that's done. You don't have to worry about it, and you'll be able to use those scores later on down the road.
Right. So you're in study mode, and that could be a good thing, you know, to go back after some time and take it again. And there was a great question: what kind of time did you put into it? Which is, and I think our panelists would agree, practice questions, practice questions, practice questions. So getting the book and doing practice questions under simulated sort of testing conditions, just sitting there and doing it, timing yourself as if you were in the exam. That is probably the best strategy that you can do. And then recognizing when you look at your scores, am I, you know, getting lower, and putting more time into that. But putting out a schedule for yourself of study and doing practice questions. Lisa, did you want to, I see the questions in the chat, and I think some of them are really great. One of them is, can you take your MBA degree in 4 years at URI? I think they mean through an accelerated bachelor master's sort of.
Right. So technically we don't have a formal, what they call ABM, accelerated bachelor's to master's program through the MBA program, but we do have a 1-year full-time MBA. So you can come right from undergraduate, which is very similar to what an ABM does. You know, you can go right from undergrad to grad school. So we do not have a work experience requirement. I would say typically about a third of our students are coming right from undergraduate, different majors. So that is an opportunity for you.
And that actually is a great segue into the next question, which is for Lucy. How do you find the curriculum? How did you find the curriculum of the MBA program? Did it add something new to your skill set? And this is what I think, you know, that we were getting at before, and I think you touched on it, but I'd love if you could expand on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they did. So I was a supply chain management major in undergrad, and I decided to, and that is a concentration that you can also do in the MBA program, but I decided to not concentrate in anything in the MBA program. Mostly because and you have electives that you can also take. So most of my 400 level classes that I took undergrad were all supply chain. So felt pretty well versed academically in supply chain. So my electives that I chose were I wanted to do outside of that. So if you were to do your MBA, I would recommend specializing in either broaden your horizons, don't specialize in anything, or specialize in something that wasn't already your major to give you another edge. So I took more marketing classes, more labor relations classes. The HR labor relations classes were something that is not offered in undergrad, which I really enjoyed. That there is a certificate program for that in the MBA, which is cool. And then the projects that you do and the assignments that you're given are also much more next level than anything you'll do in undergrad. So the presentations and things that you'll do in groups, and then the papers that you'll have to write. I was actually in Dan's business law class with John Dunn, and the paper we had to write for that was unlike anything I've ever written before. So it does give you that extra edge.
There's a higher level of expectation in the graduate program. It's a higher level of analytical and critical sort of thinking skills. And
higher level of expectation from the professors, because some of the professors you may have seen at URI undergrad, they do teach grad classes as well, and also higher level of expectation from your classmates, because they're working professionals. Like Lisa said, the average age is 29 to 30. So if you're going right after school, you're going to be younger than most of your classmates, so you have to kind of live up to that expectation.
Right. So I think, and I think that that also answered the question from Douglas Roosevelt too, which is kind of, does it make sense, you know, if I had this undergraduate to do it again? But it sounds like a very different experience. So that's great. There's a question, and Zoe, I think you asked a good question, which is, we are talking a lot about URI. Certainly, this panel has URI MBA graduates on it, but are there resources available to help students who want to apply to maybe URI, but also other MBA programs? What are the resources available to help? Certainly, I know that professors will write you recommendation letters for those other programs. Certainly, people will help guide you, but any other thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, anybody at any time can use me as a resource. Just because I run the URI MBA program, I'd be happy, you know, to set appointments with anybody, to just talk about, you know, admissions in general when it comes to graduate school, other MBA programs. You know, really anybody can contact me, and I'll just put my email address in the chat. It's just, the easiest one to remember is mba@uri.edu. And feel free at any time to email me. We can set up a Zoom meeting, you know, or just chat between emails. And I guess the question to the panelists is, when you were applying to the MBA program, did you apply to other programs? Or was URI just the only one? Historically, I find that a lot of my MBA students only choose URI to apply to. You know, I'd say maybe 25% are applying to multiple programs. I don't know if it's just because location-wise, cost-wise. I'd be interested to hear from the panelists why maybe they chose the URI MBA, and if they apply to other programs.
I didn't apply to other programs, Lisa, but as I said, I looked at other programs, and I actually went and sat with the dean of one of the other colleges and talked face-to-face about the program to get a sense for it, looked at affordability and what have you. And I was one of those that just applied to URI when I was done, but I think between researching the school online, going there physically, talking to the dean about the program, it was, you know, more information interview in a way. That was enough for me to just say, yeah, I'm going to put all my eggs in the URI basket. I feel pretty comfortable with that. So I did only apply to one. Yeah.
Yeah, on Lisa, actually on the prior question to your point, to what we're saying also about just getting to know your professors, want to reemphasize that again. Make sure you guys do that. If you don't go to their office hours, go to their office hours. If you don't have questions about the material, ask next level questions. Ask deeper dive material about something you're really excited about. Your professors want to spend time with you, believe it or not, for the most part. I won't speak for every professor. I'm sure Bob, as a professor at URI, is in that boat. That it's a passion. It's a passion for the students. They want to get to know you. It really makes their day special when you go and you form a bit of a relationship, and it makes getting those letters of rec so much easier when you do have a formed relationship with them. Also want to give a shout out to Lisa as just an amazing resource. If you guys aren't taking advantage of the fact that you have Lisa at your disposal, you absolutely should be. Through my MBA journey, amazing resource from before I started, through during it, even through now. And it's not like I chat with her on a daily basis. I probably met with her maybe 3 times throughout my MBA career. It's really rare to find an advisor that actually puts as much care into their work as Lisa does. Through the different schools I've been at, through different advisors, a lot of times you'll get some kind of like nonsense answers because they don't really know, or they just kind of want to get into their next meeting. Lisa's the kind of person that she's actually going to sit with you and really give you like just solid, strong advice on whatever you're working on. So make sure you guys are connecting with Lisa. Additionally, make sure you guys are connecting with us on LinkedIn. I definitely want to hear from everybody. It's really exciting for me to work with current student base and alumni. Shout out to Julie, who's the only person that hit me up on LinkedIn so far. So great job, Julie. Way to be a leader. In regards to the question at hand, similar to Bob, I looked at a lot of programs and a lot of local programs. To be totally honest, I looked at Bryant, could not afford $35,000 a year in tuition, so that was out. Looked at PC, didn't quite feel right for me. Looked at online programs, decided I didn't want to do online learning. URI was a really, really good fit. I really love state schools. I really love local schools. If you are local to Rhode Island or to New England and you plan on staying local, it's really, really huge to be at a local school because that will get noticed on a resume. Because Rhode Island, everybody either went to URI or knows somebody that went to URI when we're talking in the professional space. That will get noticed. You know, I'm sure that the University of Northern Michigan is a great school. Nobody's going to know what that is when they're looking at your resume. You put URI down, that's at least going to get some attention. And anywhere you can get an edge, it's going to be a big deal as you guys are progressing through your careers.
And I also only applied to URI, mostly because I already had a graduate assistantship. And I really recommend looking, if you're interested in grad school, looking at if they offer graduate assistantships. I feel like most institutions probably do, and most departments at URI, so college business has a few, but then campus rec has a few, dining has one, the career services has a few. So there's probably over 100 grad assistants on URI's campus. So those positions do exist. And if you can get a full-time grad assistantship, which is just, it's working 20 hours and you get paid for the hours that you work, and you also get tuition paid for, you still have to pay fees, just so you know. I didn't know that at first. So those types of things, you should look around at other institutions and at URI. And apply. You can always apply for those before or after getting into their graduate programs. So
I'll add one other thing about why URI, and you know what, I didn't know this at the time, but I learned when I was in the program. The professors there, little biased at this point, but you know, there's the professors in this span of knowledge and experiences in industry as well as academia is broad. The resources to bring a business plan to the URI to get critiqued is there. But as one of the, I think Lucy mentioned it, electives that you can take, explore those electives. I think depending on where you are in your career, if you do work first, or even if you're in school right now and you have other interests besides your major. In my case, I had real estate. I owned and rented a house. It was minor, but it was one of those things where I wanted to know more about small business. It wasn't the focus of my MBA, but I took one of those electives that helped me understand how to build a business plan, expand real estate, buy other houses. But what does it take to do feasibility and marketing studies and so you know you've got a chance to survive with a small business. And so I'm a little grayer than most here, but literally 25 years, and it's maybe 2 years, I started my own business. And trust me, the business planning, I literally sat down and started with the same structure that Dr. Comerford showed me and started to build that out. So there are some great surprises in the program. You'll have an immediate focus. We talked a lot about careers and what have you and additional skills, but those electives can bring you some great surprises in how to understand and navigate other options that you might have later down the line. So keep that in mind too.
So I loved the poll at the beginning because, as Dan said, it did give us a great perspective. And even for those people who are, you know, in the later stages of their undergraduate career, the juniors and seniors, there's still plenty of time to think about, you know, classes or internships or things like that. Advice that you would have for an undergraduate, and Bob, you started to touch on this, to think about applying what they're learning, or internships or experiential sort of stuff, even virtually, that they may be able to do to give them a little bit of a taste of it that would maybe strengthen their application or at least give them a little bit more ideas, things that you would recommend. You know, we talked about GMAT, GRE, or standardized tests or essays, but kind of to really get into the market a little bit.
So I strongly recommend the internships. I work now with one of the professors, Professor Hales, on internships for supply chain management in companies. And so they're out there and get you involved in the ins and outs of what other companies do and what the culture is. You can kind of get a feel for it. which is tremendously beneficial, not only for the experience, the real life experience that you're going to acquire, but also the better understanding of what can drive into a business, what it feels like to be working in there, the atmosphere, everything. So I think that gives you a good feel for it.
Yeah, I think I know that I'm surprised it didn't come up yet, but talking about going to grad school right after college versus getting some work experience. Definitely agree with Nancy on internships. That's something I did not do as a college student. I definitely should have. It's one of my regrets. But my first grad program, I didn't do it right after school. I did it shortly after school with limited business experience. And my MBA, I had a fair amount of business experience. If you aren't getting the internship experience, I would actually recommend getting some work experience first, based on my own experiences. And it's going to be different for you guys as individuals. So you have to figure out what's best for you, which I know is that's like my least favorite answer to anybody ever. Like, figure out what's best for you. Sitting in the classes, it's very easy to tell who has work experience and who doesn't, based on how they ask questions, what they ask questions about, how easily they understand concepts. And it also changes your own perspective very much. When you're sitting in in an accounting class, right? And you've actually handled things that impact dollars, and you've looked at balance sheets in the real world versus just looking at it in a theoretical space. It's a completely different understanding of how you absorb that material. More importantly, it's a completely different experience on how you retain that material, because it becomes much more relevant to you because it's things that you've actually had to work with. You can remember, I had plenty of these when I took my MBA of like, if I knew that when I needed to know it, I would have handled that situation so much better, right? But it's also learning from that experience that makes the MBA, I think, such a much more worthwhile experience.
Another thing that I did during the MBA was I did a MBA co-op. So they do have MBA internships and co-ops, which is just kind of a little bit longer of an internship. I took 2 years through the MBA. In the summer in between those 2 years, I was an intern at CVS, and CVS has a ton of MBA and graduate level interns in the summer. And I was also able to extend that internship through, I worked from June, and then starting in June full-time, and then starting in September, once classes started up, part-time until January. So it was about 6 or 7 months of a co-op that I did. And then I got a full-time offer out of that, but I got a lot of experience, and it is different than, I think, just a regular undergraduate internship. So those are also something that's available to you.
Right, and you also did an internships as an undergraduate too. I did.
Yes, oh yeah, as undergrad I did.
Despite rowing the whole time. So, I mean, you really did a lot of time management, but you did do it as an undergraduate, so it's certainly a possibility. And I know that working with the Career Services Office, the CCEE here at URI, they're phenomenal. They certainly have virtual internships as well. And I'm sure that those of you who are in business know that that's the biggest thing now.
Absolutely.
We had a great question in the chat from Spencer, which is about, I might be graduating soon, or maybe, is it important? Does it kind of determine my career, my first job out of school? So the question is, does the career path that you take out of undergraduate have an effect on how competitive you are as a candidate?
Well, I mean, I can talk about the admission side. If the question is about how do I make myself competitive in an admission environment versus, a job environment after you're done with the MBA was originally created for non-business majors. And so therefore we have a very diverse group of people that apply to an MBA. it does not matter what someone's undergraduate major is in or what career path they had taken before applying to the program, if they do have work experience. So admissions, as far as I'm concerned, is blind to what kind of positions you've had before you've entered. You know, some of the things that we're looking for in admissions, and I can only speak to URI because every university is different. You know, the important things will be the balance of your quantitative and your non-quantitative information. Quantitatively, we're looking at your GPA, standardized tests. That will historically tell us how someone's going to do in grad school, but just as important are letters of recommendation, your essay. Yes, we do want to see your resume because we can only get so much from your essay. You know, a lot of times interviews aren't required. So we want to see what skill sets you're going to bring to the table. Because as these panelists have already said, you know, you're sitting next to people with work experience, etc. What do you bring to the table as a candidate? And what can you add to the classroom in that respect?
Yeah,
So,
I would add to that. Spencer, I certainly don't know you, but if you want to connect, I'd be happy to chat further. My own path. So I studied history at the University of Buffalo in Buffalo, New York. I worked on houses for a little while because it was 2008, which was very similar economic time to what we have right now, which was interesting. Got a degree in education, worked in nonprofits for a while, got laid off, got into sales, and then got an MBA. So definitely not, you know, bachelor's in business, MBA, off I go. Again, I think you guys get your grades, take care of business, get your letter of rec. So what Lisa's saying, it's you're going to hear the same advice over and over, and you'll be fine. Spencer, I'd want to challenge you on the question because I think you may have it a little backwards. It's just as like some professional advice. It shouldn't be about what career path is going to help me get an MBA. It should be how's an MBA going to help my career path. And if you keep it in that perspective, you're going to do absolutely fine wherever you choose to go.
And I think I can jump in here as from the career path stance. You know, I think I mentioned this. I was a math major, and then I went to get my MBA. And you know, when I was an undergrad, didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it. And I think sometimes you have those feelings of I don't know what I'm going to do when I get out. But the college has a plan to help you get a career. You start to find more of what your passions are, and that will help you to take off in the midst there. So I think that the MBA definitely complements, and you get to pick, at least I got to pick a concentration of what I wanted to learn in the MBA. But I think all the components that you pick along the way is going to help define your path, and your passion is really a big part of it.
I wanted to pick up on your point, Nancy, and then also go to a question in the chat. And Nancy's point is what does the, you know, that the MBA program here at URI and I'm sure other MBA programs do have a career focus and help you with that. What sort of help? I mean, we did talk about internships. What other sorts of things have you seen that help put you on the right path towards your career outside of curricular sort of things in the MBA program?
So what kinds of things did I see outside of?
Were you able to avail yourself out? Were there alumni interactions? Were there
Yes.
sort of things, you know, programs, you know, I should be more clear, clubs, you know, things that were extracurricular that you could take advantage of that also furthered you?
So I think definitely getting to know my professors was very helpful. The networking piece of it came into play. I also, as an undergrad, joined a sorority, so I had contacts there. so there were many aspects of it. Once I got out into to building my career and getting a job, the alumni really helped because as I think it was Dan or Bob, or this could have been this morning's, they're blurring now, but you run into a lot of people from URI that know URI, that have undergrads, graduates, kids that go to URI. So the tapping into the alumni association is a really great plan for anyone to kind of build their future.
There was a question in the chat, great question. Do we have any suggestions, and maybe Lisa, this is for you, for writing a statement of purpose for an MBA program?
Yeah, absolutely. For URI, we have a general question. Why are you looking for the URI MBA program at this point in your life? If you're looking at other programs, just obviously delve a little bit into what questions they're asking you, because some programs have specific questions they want you to answer. And the big thing is just be genuine. People in the admissions world read a lot of essays. They can tell when you're turning things on, or, off on, just really from the heart, say why you're looking for an MBA. You're going to give some background about yourself. Talk a little bit about where you've been, what you're doing right now. And if career-wise what you want to do when you're done, put that into that essay too, and say, well, in 5 years, I know I want to do this. And I know in this industry, the MBA not only helps me with the skill set, but it's also going to help me get there. So it's like Dan said, I hate using this word, but you have to just, do what you can, and answer it personally. Because your story is so much different than everybody else's story, so you only know your story, but let us into that world.
So Kara, one other point just to make is, the path that you take is you make it your own path. No matter where you go, whether it's an MBA here at URI or other places, or the international aspects of what you do in your job or your education, everything you do, everything that you're learning from is going to define your path going forward. And once you find, what really drives you, you're going to be able to take off with it. And I mean, some of you are going to be looking at, not only careers, but family aspects of it. And how does it blend together? There were aspects of, or times in my career that, my husband was like, why can't you take a job in Boston, take a job and I was ready for a family. So there's decisions you make no matter where you are in your career that are going to affect you going forward. Do the best thing for you and your family as you go through it, because every aspect of it's going to kind of tie together.
We had a question about applying to PhD programs, which is not necessarily for this panel, but it's certainly something that one can do with a graduate degree. It wouldn't. I have to say, and Lisa, I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, and anyone else who has gone into that. From my perspective, and I also work with our PhDs in business, it's a much smaller cohort than an MBA program. It's a much longer process to go through. Most of the people who go into that have an idea at the end that they want to teach, or that they want to do something highly specialized, because whereas an MBA, I think we've talked about, can broaden a lot of your opportunities. Once you go into a PhD program, it's great. But and I'd love if maybe the panelists can talk about their perception of PhDs, but as a general matter in the business world, you can seem more esoteric than practical. And so you have to decide kind of how you want to be viewed by the market. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just want to mention too that, you know, if you are interested in PhD, you do need to have your master's first. But start now talking to the professors within that discipline. So the PhD, you can do it in supply chain and finance, you know, marketing. So do that early. The only other piece I do want to mention, I believe Zoom is going to kick us out at 10:45. Okay. So it is 10:43.
So we're almost there.
At least we got kicked out of the first one I did.
Yeah. Right, so that's a great point. Any thoughts from the panelists on the PhD? So it's just a different kind of degree. Yeah.
I would just say pick your timing, and you know, I've looked into it recently to specialize in the consulting area based on your family situation, the amount of time you can dedicate. Personally, I would say pull it in earlier in your career than later, but it's a great opportunity. Timing is everything.
Yeah, I would add to that, to build on what Bob said, whether it's the MBA program or a DBA or PhD, make sure you have a support system that's going to help you through this, and set expectations with that support system. It's a much bigger commitment than undergrad, both programs. They really are. I can't speak to PhD program, MBA program, 100% worth it, but you have to have yourself in a spot where you can be successful. You have to set expectations with your friends, your family. I'm going to miss an event. I'm going to miss a party. I'm not going to be able to go out. I'm not going to be able to play whatever video games you guys play on Thursday nights with my boys. Like, that's out the window because I got to focus on my program. Just understand the commitment you're signing up for, and it'll work out.
Good point.
Yes. So you've been a marvelous panel. Thank you, Lisa, for keeping your eyes on the time. Thank you to Dan, to Lucy, to Bob, to Nancy, and thank you to all of you here, you students who are being really forward thinking and thinking about your future so early and so analytically. So graduate school is a great thing. I have a graduate degree. Lisa has a graduate degree. It certainly expands your horizons. And Lisa has put her email in the chat, and do take advantages of the resources here at URI. There's many of them to support you. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day at the business program.
Thank you, everyone.